The clinking of champagne flutes is a delicate torture. Each chime a tiny hammer against the anvil of my nerves. My father stands, beaming, his glass held high. The crystal catches the light from the rented chandeliers, scattering diamonds across the faces of our friends, our family, people who've known me since I was a clumsy kid with scraped knees and dreams too big for my bedroom. Tonight, they're here for my parents' 40th anniversary. A milestone. A testament, supposedly, to love and partnership. My mother watches him, her smile a little tight around the edges, but adoration still swimming in her eyes. I'm standing near the back, a habit I've never quite managed to break, nursing a glass of sparkling water that tastes like disappointment. He clears his throat, and a hush falls over the ballroom. "My dearest friends, my beautiful family," he begins, his voice thick with emotion. I can feel the familiar tightening in my chest, the preemptive cringe. I know it's coming. Or, at least, a version of it. 40 years. 40 years with this incredible woman. He gestures to my mother, and she blushes, a genuine, girlish blush that makes her look 20 years younger. There's a smattering of applause, warm and appreciative. I clap too, a polite, distant sound. This part is good. This part is true. He continues, "We've built a life, a legacy. We've faced challenges, celebrated triumphs. And through it all, we've been blessed." His eyes scan the room, and for a fleeting second, they pass over me, a brief, unlingering glance. Then they lock onto my brother Alex. And I have to say, Dad's voice swells with a pride so potent it's almost tangible, a huge part of our peace of mind, our security. All our success, as we look towards the future, it's thanks to your brother. To Alex. The words hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. His brilliance, his hard work in managing what we've built, his incredible foresight. Alex, son, you've secured our legacy. A collective intake of breath. Not a gasp of shock, not yet, but a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. A few heads turn, almost imperceptibly, towards me. I feel the heat rise in my face, a blush of humiliation, of invisibility. He didn't just praise Alex. He attributed all their success, their entire security, to him. As if I'm just scenery. A potted plant in the corner of their well-appointed life. My own quiet, relentless work, the years I've poured into something I believed in, apparently accounts for nothing in his grand ledger of family achievement. The sparkling water suddenly tastes like acid. If you've ever felt that sting, that public erasure by someone you love, tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And if you feel like sticking around for the rest of this, please subscribe. It helps more than you know, truly. My normal life, if you could call it that, has always been lived in the shadow of Mount Alex. He's 2 years older, effortlessly charming, the kind of person who could sell sand in the Sahara and make the camels thank him for it. From the time we were kids, he was the golden one. His crayon drawings were inspired. Mine were messy. His A-minuses were a momentary lapse for a genius. My straight A's were good, but are you trying hard enough in other areas? I learned early to keep my passions quiet, to nurture them in the dark like fragile seedlings. My parents, especially Dad, valued things they understood. Finance, law, the kind of solid, respectable careers that looked good on a Christmas card. Alex, naturally, excelled in finance. He managed the family investments, a task Dad handed over to him with a flourish when Alex was barely out of university, proclaiming him unnatural. My own path was different. I was drawn to sustainable technology, to the idea of building something that could genuinely change the world for the better, not just accrue more zeros in a bank account. I started a small company, bootstrap-funded, fueled by late nights, cheap coffee, and a stubborn belief that what I was doing mattered. I called it Nova Future, a bit on the nose, maybe, but it felt right. It was about a new dawn, a new way. Whenever I'd try to explain my work to Dad, his eyes would glaze over. "That's nice, dear," he'd say, before launching into a monologue about Alex's latest stock pick or his brilliant negotiation on some property deal. Your brother. Now he's got the Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to gold. Solid. dependable. The implication was always clear. My venture was a hobby. A flight of fancy. Not real work. Not like Alex's. The planning for the 40th anniversary party had been a microcosm of this dynamic. I'd offered to help with the logistics, to design the invitations. I have a decent eye for that sort of thing. Mom had looked tempted, but Dad had waved a dismissive hand. Alex has got it covered. He's hired the best event planner in the city. Top-notch. Only the best for your mother. And so, Alex was in charge. Every meeting, every decision was filtered through him. The theme, the guest list, even the damn canapes. I'd hear snippets of their conversations, Dad booming with enthusiasm for Alex's choices, Alex modestly accepting the praise. It's nothing, Dad. Just want Mom to have the perfect day. Meanwhile, Nova Future was approaching a critical juncture. We were on the cusp of a breakthrough with a new energy storage system, something smaller, more efficient, and dramatically cheaper than anything on the market. It had the potential to revolutionize renewable energy accessibility. But it was also a gamble. We'd poured every last resource into it. The pressure was immense, a constant thrum beneath the surface of my days. I kept it mostly to myself. What was the point of sharing? It would only be met with polite disinterest or, worse, a well-meaning but ill-informed lecture on sensible investments from Dad, inevitably contrasted with Alex's latest triumph. A few weeks before the party, Dad cornered me in the kitchen while I was visiting. He was holding a financial report, looking smug. Alex has done it again, he announced, tapping the paper. Increased our portfolio value by 15% this quarter. 15%. In this market. The man's a wizard, he shook his head in admiration. It's such a relief knowing he's looking after things. Your mother and I can finally relax, enjoy our retirement. All thanks to him. I'd murmured something noncommittal, my stomach twisting. My own wizardry involved coaxing experimental polymers to behave, wrestling with complex algorithms, and trying to convince skeptical investors that a better future wasn't just a dream. It felt a world away from his 15%. The early struggles with Nova Future were a relentless grind. I remember the first office, a cramped, windowless room above a noisy garage. The rent was cheap, and the air always smelled faintly of oil and desperation. My co-founder, Sarah, and I would work 18-hour days, fueled by instant noodles and an almost fanatical belief in our vision. There were days when the sheer enormity of what we were trying to achieve felt crushing. We were nobodies, trying to disrupt an industry dominated by giants. I'd sometimes go to family dinners, exhausted and smelling vaguely of solder fumes, and listen to tales of Alex's latest successes. A big bonus. A promotion. A glowing commendation from his CEO. Dad would clap him on the back, beaming. That's my boy. See? Hard work and a sharp mind. That's the ticket. I'd look down at my hands, calloused and stained from the lab, and a bitter little laugh would try to escape. Hard work? I knew about hard work. But my version didn't come with catered lunches and corporate retreats. It came with the constant fear of failure, the gnawing anxiety of payroll, the sting of rejection from yet another venture capital firm that thought our ideas were too ambitious or not commercially viable yet. One particularly painful memory stands out. I was about 24, a couple of years into Nova Future. We'd had a small local grant, a tiny victory that felt huge to us. I tried to tell Dad about it, my voice brimming with a rare surge of excitement. He'd listened, nodding, but his eyes were distant. When I finished, he said, "That's good. That's good. You know, Alex just closed a deal worth, well, let's just say it's a lot of zeros. He's really flying." He then launched into a detailed explanation of Alex's complex financial maneuvering, none of which I understood, nor did I particularly care to. The grant, my small triumph, shriveled and died in the shadow of Alex's zeros. Self-doubt became a constant companion. Was I delusional? Was this whole endeavor just a colossal waste of time and energy? Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I should have taken that sensible job offer at the bank after college. The one Alex had helpfully arranged an interview for. The challenges with Nova Future only intensified. We secured a round of seed funding, enough to move into a slightly larger, slightly less depressing office and hire a small team. But with more money came more pressure, higher stakes. We hit a major technical roadblock with the energy storage prototype. The materials weren't stable. The energy density wasn't there. Weeks turned into months of frustrating, dead-end experiments. Our burn rate was terrifying. I'd lie awake at night, the figures scrolling behind my eyelids, a relentless countdown to zero. Around this time, Alex announced he was buying a new condo. Downtown penthouse, panoramic city views. Dad was ecstatic. "See," he'd said to me during a Sunday lunch, as if I were a particularly slow student. "That's what smart decisions and real ambition get you. Solid assets." He gestured vaguely in my direction. "Not tinkering." The word tinkering felt like a slap. All those years of study, the advanced degrees, the relentless research, the sacrifices, all dismissed as mere tinkering. The anniversary party preparations were in full swing, a constant, glittering reminder of the world Alex inhabited, a world I seemingly couldn't touch. Mom would call, excited about the floral arrangements Alex had chosen, or the Michelin-starred chef Alex had secured. Each detail was a testament to his success, his taste, his ability to provide only the best. I was running on fumes. Our lead engineer had quit, lured away by a bigger salary at an established corporation. One of our key suppliers had suddenly, inexplicably, doubled their prices, putting a massive strain on our already tight budget. It felt like every time we took a step forward, we were shoved 2 steps back. Then came the call from a journalist. A small niche tech blog, but still, someone was interested. They wanted to do a piece on Nova Future, on our innovative approach. A tiny spark of hope ignited in the overwhelming darkness. I spent hours preparing, making sure I could articulate our vision, our progress, our potential. The interview went well, I thought. I allowed myself a sliver of optimism. Maybe this could be a turning point. A few days later, Dad called. Not about the party. Not about Alex. He sounded concerned. "Someone sent me a link," he said, his voice hesitant. "Some little website. About your company." My heart leaped. "Oh, the tech blog?" "Yes, they interviewed me." "It says you're having financial difficulties," he interrupted, his tone shifting from concern to something approaching accusation. "That you're struggling to make breakthroughs. That you're high risk." I was stunned. "What?" "No, that's not what I said. That's not what the article was supposed to be about. I hadn't even seen it published yet." "Well, it's out there now," he said, his voice hardening. "Alex saw it too. He's worried," he said, and I quote, "She's playing with fire, Dad. This could be very embarrassing for the family if it all goes belly up." Embarrassing for the family. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "How can we help?" But this could be embarrassing. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I found the article. It was a hatchet job. Full of out-of-context quotes, misrepresentations, focusing on the risks and challenges, barely mentioning the innovation. It painted Nova Future as a desperate, failing pipe dream. How could they have twisted it so badly? Who would send this to my father, to Alex? It was then that a cold suspicion began to dawn. Alex. He was the only one who knew enough about my work to potentially feed specific, damaging information, yet also keep his hands clean. He'd always been so smooth, so charmingly concerned. "Just looking out for you, sis," he'd say, with that winning smile, whenever he offered advice that often felt more like subtle discouragement. Could he be actively working against me? The thought was sickening, but it lodged itself in my mind like a shard of ice. The midpoint shift wasn't a single event, but a slow, dawning, painful realization. After the hit piece on the tech blog, I felt lower than I ever had. The small spark of hope had been brutally extinguished. I sat in my lab late one night, surrounded by diagrams and half-finished prototypes, the silence amplifying my despair. The journalist wasn't returning my calls. The negative article was already being picked up by other small aggregators. It felt like a deliberate, targeted attack. Then, Sarah, My co-founder, bless her unwavering soul, found something. She'd been digging into the blog, the writer, trying to understand what had happened. The writer was a freelancer, relatively unknown. But he'd recently written a glowing piece about a very traditional, very old-guard energy company. A company that Alex, through his investment firm, had significant ties to. A company that would directly suffer if our technology ever succeeded. The connection was circumstantial, of course. Plausible deniability all around. But it was enough. Enough to change something fundamental within me. The pain of my father's dismissal, his constant, unthinking elevation of Alex, had always been a dull ache. But this felt different. If Alex was indeed behind this, it wasn't just dismissal. It was active sabotage. It was betrayal, cloaked in concern. I called Dad. I tried to explain about the article, about the possible connections, the unfairness of it all. Now, he said, his voice placating, patronizing. Don't go looking for conspiracies. Sometimes things just don't work out. Alex is just concerned, that's all. He thinks perhaps this whole venture is too much for you. He even said he could help you find a good, stable position in one of his companies. A fresh start. A fresh start. Under Alex's thumb. The offer, relayed through Dad, felt like a final, suffocating insult. It was in that moment, listening to my father parrot Alex's concerns, that the shift truly occurred. The desperate need for his approval, the yearning for him to see me, to value my work, began to recede. It was replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I wasn't going to win his approval by playing their game. My worth wasn't determined by his understanding or Alex's machinations. My strategy had always been to work hard, hope for the best, and pray for recognition. That strategy was dead. My new strategy was simpler. Succeed. Succeed so undeniably, so spectacularly, that their opinions became irrelevant. Succeed for myself, for Sarah, for my team, for the belief that had carried me this far. The fight wasn't for their validation anymore. It was for Nova Future. It was for me. A quiet fury began to burn where the despair had been. It wasn't a raging fire, but a controlled, intense heat. I looked at the schematics on my desk, the complex equations, the challenges that still lay ahead. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt focused, determined. The upcoming anniversary party, Dad's inevitable paean to Alex, it all seemed to shrink in significance. Let them have their narrative. I was busy writing my own. The deepening crisis arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. Just as we thought we were finally stabilizing the new energy storage material, a crucial patent application, one we'd filed months ago, the absolute bedrock of our innovation, was challenged. Not just challenged, but aggressively contested by a shell corporation with deep pockets and an army of lawyers. The legal fees alone threatened to bankrupt us. Our remaining investors grew nervous, their calls becoming more frequent, their tone more demanding. Sarah and I pored over the challenge documents. The arguments were sophisticated, eerily knowledgeable about the unpublished nuances of our research. It felt, again, like an inside job, or at least like someone with intimate knowledge was feeding information to our opponents. The shadow of Alex and his connections to traditional energy sectors loomed larger in my mind, though I had no concrete proof, only a sickening intuition. The timing was brutal. The anniversary party was just a week away. My mother called daily, her voice a mix of excitement and gentle prodding. "You will be there, won't you, dear? It would mean so much to your father, and then, inevitably, Alex has arranged the most wonderful surprise for your father, you know. He's been working on it for months." Another triumph for Alex. Another reminder of my own precarious situation. I was barely sleeping. The lab became my home. My team, loyal to a fault, rallied, working around the clock, trying to find ways to strengthen our patent claim, to accelerate our final prototype tests, to prove unequivocally the uniqueness and efficacy of our technology. But the lawyers were pessimistic. They have a strong case, or at least they have the resources to make it look strong. This could drag on for years. Years you probably don't have. All our funds were frozen by the legal dispute. Payroll was due. Our suppliers, already spooked by the negative blog post, were now demanding cash up front. It felt like a meticulously planned siege. Every escape route was being cut off. One evening, I sat alone in the darkened lab, the hum of the dormant equipment my only companion. The weight of it all pressed down on me, a physical ache in my chest. Failure seemed inevitable. The dreams of Nova Future, of changing the world, were turning to ash. I thought of Dad's face, his disappointment, not overt, but that quiet, resigned sigh he'd give when I'd failed to live up to his unspoken expectations. I thought of Alex, his smug, charming smile, always one step ahead, always winning. And for a moment, I wanted to give up. Just walk away. Let it all crumble. Maybe Alex was right. Maybe Dad was right. Maybe I was just tinkering, playing at something too big for me. The thought of facing them all at the anniversary party, a confirmed failure, the family embarrassment Alex had predicted, was a fresh wave of nausea. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Just confirming your RSVP, sweetie. Alex has outdone himself with the seating chart. You'll be at a lovely table. I stared at the message, the casual cheerfulness of it grating against my raw nerves. A lovely table. As if the arrangement of chairs could somehow mask the chasm that had opened between my reality and theirs. The image of Alex, meticulously arranging names on a chart, placing me at a lovely table while, perhaps, orchestrating my professional demise, was a grotesque irony. That was it. That was the turning point. Not a surge of heroic defiance, not yet, but a flicker. A tiny, stubborn spark refusing to be extinguished. The sheer, unadulterated injustice of it. The thought of Alex, potentially engineering this downfall, and then sitting there, basking in Dad's praise, while I was relegated to a lovely table of obscurity and failure. No. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I picked up my phone, not to reply to Mom, but to call Sarah. Get the team together, I said, my voice hoarse but firm. First thing tomorrow. We're not done. There's one more thing we can try with the prototype. It's high risk, a long shot. But if it works, if it worked, it could bypass the contested elements of the patent. It would be a new iteration, even better, even more revolutionary. And we had to do it now before everything collapsed. I would go to that party. I would hold my head high, regardless of the outcome of this last desperate gamble. I wouldn't shrink. I wouldn't hide. I would face them. My success, or my failure, would be my own, not a footnote in Alex's story. A cold resolve settled over me. The despair didn't vanish, but it was joined by something else, a grim, unwavering determination. The fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The ballroom is opulent, almost aggressively so. Chandeliers drip crystals like frozen tears. Tables are laden with flowers that smell faintly of funerals and celebration, a strange, cloying mix. I'm wearing a dress I bought on sale years ago, something simple, elegant, that usually makes me feel good. Tonight, it feels like armor, thin and inadequate. I found my lovely table. It's tucked away in a corner, with a partial view of a service door. With me are some distant cousins I barely know and an elderly aunt who keeps asking if I'm still doing that little computer thing. I nod, smile, and sip my water, which still tastes like defeat. The air is thick with anticipation for Dad's speech. Alex, of course, is at the head table, seated next to Mom, looking every inch the successful scion. He catches my eye once, gives a small, patronizing smile, a little nod, as if to say, "Chin up, sis. Better luck next time." The urge to throw my water glass at his perfectly tailored suit is almost overwhelming. Then Dad stands up. The clinking of his spoon against his glass silences the room. His voice, when he begins, is richer, more emotional than I've ever heard it. He speaks of love, of partnership, of the journey he and Mom have shared. It's beautiful, genuinely moving. For a moment, the bitterness in me softens. And then he arrives at the inevitable. We've built a life, a legacy, he says, his gaze sweeping the room before landing, with laser-like focus on Alex. And I have to say, a huge part of our peace of mind, our security, all our success as we look towards the future, it's thanks to your brother. To Alex. The words hit me like a physical blow, harder than I expected, even though I knew they were coming. All our success. He repeats it, as if for emphasis. His brilliance, his hard work in managing what we've built, his incredible foresight in the markets. Alex, son, you've secured our legacy. Your mother and I can face our golden years without a single worry, knowing you've made us untouchable. Untouchable. The word echoes in the sudden, profound silence. This time, the collective intake of breath from the guests is sharper, more audible. Several heads swivel directly towards me, no longer subtle. I can feel their pity, their curiosity. I stare down at my plate, at the artfully arranged slice of salmon I have no intention of eating. My face is burning. This is it. The public confirmation of my irrelevance. Alex is beaming, accepting the silent adulation. He even has the gall to look humble. My phone, tucked in my clutch, vibrates. Then it vibrates again. And again. A small, insistent tremor against my palm. Across the room, other phones begin to light up, emitting soft chimes and buzzes. A murmur starts at a nearby table, then spreads, growing louder, more urgent. Someone gasps, a loud, undeniable sound. "Oh my God, look at this," a voice exclaims, cutting through the heavy silence left by Dad's toast. Heads turn. People are grabbing their phones, faces illuminated by the screens, expressions shifting from polite interest to shock, to disbelief. My own phone is still buzzing insistently. With trembling fingers, I pull it out. The screen is flooded with notifications. News alerts. Texts from Sarah, from my team, all caps, exclamation points. Nova Future secures landmark government contract. Revolutionary energy storage unveiled by Nova Future, a game-changer for renewables. Stock market in turmoil as Nova Future tech disrupts energy sector. My breath catches in my throat. Our last-ditch effort, the high-risk modification to the prototype, the one we'd pushed through in a desperate, sleepless frenzy over the past week, it hadn't just worked. It had worked spectacularly. And Sarah, without telling me, knowing the anniversary party was tonight, had timed the official press release, embargoed until this very evening, to coincide with a major government announcement about a new green energy initiative. An initiative that our technology was now at the heart of. The murmur in the ballroom has become a roar. People are on their feet, pointing at their phones, talking excitedly. The name Nova Future is being repeated over and over. Is that her company? Someone at a nearby table asks, gesturing towards me. Slowly, I raise my head. My father is still standing at the podium, his smile frozen, confusion clouding his face. My mother looks bewildered. Alex's face is a mask of stunned disbelief, his confident smirk wiped clean away. His own phone is now in his hand, his thumb frantically scrolling. Then the plot twist deepens, twisting the knife Alex himself had tried to wield. One of the headlines flashing on a prominent news site, visible on several screens, reads, "Green Revolution. Nova Future's breakthrough sends shockwaves through traditional energy investments. Analysts predict major losses for fossil fuel portfolios." My father's proud declaration about Alex securing their legacy, making them untouchable through his brilliant market foresight, now hangs in the air, a monument to tragic irony. Because Alex, as I knew, had heavily invested their family money, his managed success, in exactly those traditional energy sectors, the ones now teetering on the brink of collapse because of my company, my breakthrough. He'd even bragged about doubling down on them recently, calling renewables a fad. The Shell Corporation that had challenged our patent? The news alerts were now speculating that its funding traced back to a consortium of old energy companies, the very ones Alex was championing, the ones desperate to suppress technologies like mine. The patent challenge, the negative blog, it was all part of their death throes, their attempt to stop the future. An attempt Alex was, at best, complicit in, and at worst, a key orchestrator of, all to protect his own outdated investments and his image as the financial genius. His brilliance was exposed as short-sightedness. His security for the family was revealed to be a house of cards, and I had just kicked out the foundation. The room is electric. The focus has completely shifted. My father looks from the buzzing phones to me, then to Alex, his expression unreadable. Alex has gone pale, a sickly, greenish hue under the warm lights. He's no longer looking at anyone, just staring blankly at his phone, as if it holds the answers to a catastrophe he never saw coming. The victim, me, the dismissed daughter, the one whose work was mere tinkering, hasn't just achieved success. My success has inadvertently, or perhaps poetically, dismantled the very foundation of my brother's lauded achievements and, by extension, my father's misplaced faith. The betrayers, Dad for his blindness and dismissiveness, Alex for his arrogance and potential sabotage, are utterly, publicly blindsided. My win isn't just a win, it's a complete recalibration of our family's entire narrative, happening in real time, in front of everyone they sought to impress. The silence that falls now is different. It's not the awkward hush after Dad's toast to Alex. It's a silence filled with awe, with shock, with the dawning understanding of a seismic shift. All eyes are on me, not with pity anymore, but with a startling, intense curiosity and respect. My father slowly lowers his champagne glass, his hand visibly trembling. He opens his mouth, then closes it again. For the first time in my life, I see him utterly speechless, his carefully constructed world tilting on its axis. My mother's hand flies to her mouth, her eyes wide, fixed on me. Alex looks like he's seen a ghost. His phone clatters from his nerveless fingers onto the table. The sound is unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. He doesn't even stoop to pick it up. He just stares ahead, his face ashen. The golden boy, tarnished. The financial wizard, revealed. I don't say a word. I don't need to. The headlines on a dozen screens around the room are doing all the talking. My work, my little computer thing, my tinkering, has just rocked the foundations of an entire industry and, in the process, exposed the hollowness of my brother's lauded success. A tentative ripple of applause starts, hesitant at first, then growing stronger, more confident, as people turn towards me. It's not the polite, obligatory applause from earlier. This is genuine, charged with excitement. Someone from a neighboring table, a business acquaintance of my father's, I think, raises his glass. To Nova Future, he calls out, his voice ringing with enthusiasm. To the future? Others join in. Nova Future. To innovation. The sound washes over me, surreal and overwhelming. I manage a small, shaky smile. I look at my father. His eyes meet mine, and in them, I see a maelstrom of emotions, confusion, shock, dawning pride, and something else, regret? Or perhaps, just the painful recognition of his own profound misjudgment. I look at Alex. He flinches, actually flinches when my gaze lands on him. He looks away, unable to meet my eyes. The master of the universe, suddenly so small, so exposed. There's no triumph in me at his visible distress, just a cold, clear understanding of the new landscape. The power dynamic in this room, in this family, has irrevocably, seismically shifted. The rest of the evening is a blur. Guests flock to my table, the distant cousins and elderly aunt now wide-eyed and effusive. Congratulations, handshakes, business cards pressed into my palm. My father eventually makes his way over, Mom trailing in his wake. He looks older, somehow diminished. We need to talk, he says, his voice raspy. I nod. Yes, Dad. We do. There's no accusation in my tone, just a quiet statement of fact. Mom just stares at me, her eyes filled with a new, hesitant wonder. I didn't realize, she whispers. Alex never approaches. I see him slip out of the ballroom later, unnoticed by most, his shoulders slumped, the golden sheen gone. The aftermath wasn't a neat, tidy resolution. Life rarely offers those. The family fortune, so heavily tied to Alex's fossil fuel investments, took a significant hit. Not ruin, but a serious blow. Dad's pronouncements about being untouchable and Alex securing their legacy became a source of quiet, bitter irony within the family. There were many difficult conversations. Dad, to his credit, tried. He fumbled, he apologized, he asked questions about Nova Future with a genuine, albeit late, curiosity. He admitted his blindness, his favoritism. I understood Alex's world. He confessed one evening, his voice heavy with remorse. Yours did seemed so far-fetched. I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. It wasn't a magic fix. Years of ingrained perception don't vanish overnight. But it was a start. A crack in the old foundation, allowing for the possibility of something new to be built. Mom became my quiet champion. She started reading articles about sustainable technology, asking intelligent questions, her pride in me a palpable, warming presence. She confessed she'd often felt overshadowed herself in different ways and had perhaps projected her own unfulfilled ambitions onto Alex, the son who seemed to navigate the world with such ease. Alex faced his own reckoning. The fallout from his failed investments, coupled with the subtle rumors that began to circulate about his attempts to undermine competitors, like me, tarnished his reputation. He wasn't charged with anything illegal regarding Nova Future. His tracks were too well covered for that, but the whispers were damaging enough in his world of finance, where reputation is currency. He had to downsize, to rebuild, to learn a humility he'd never known. Our relationship is strained, civil but distant. The chasm of his betrayal, even if only partially proven, is too wide to easily bridge. For me, life transformed. Nova Future became a leader in the green energy revolution. The work is still demanding, the challenges still immense, but now there's a sense of momentum, of impact, that's exhilarating. I'm no longer the daughter in the shadows, the quiet tinkerer. I found my voice, my power, not in shouting, but in achieving. The victory that night wasn't just about the success of Nova Future. It was about reclaiming my own narrative. It was about realizing that my worth isn't dependent on anyone else's validation, not even my parents. The sting of my father's words at that party, "All our success is thanks to your brother," faded, replaced by a quiet confidence in my own path. It's a bittersweet kind of peace. Sadness for the years of misunderstanding, for the fractures in the family, but also a profound gratitude for the strength I found within myself, the strength to persevere when no one else believed. The legacy my father was so concerned about is being redefined, not by old money or traditional markets, but by innovation, by the courage to build a better future. And in a strange, unexpected way, I'm the one helping to secure it. Not as a footnote to Alex's story, but as the author of my own. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to fight to write your own chapter when others tried to write it for you, I'd love to hear your version in the comments. Thanks for being here, for listening. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life, and I appreciate every single one of you.